guys. I'm going to be moderating this one. We are just waiting. Oh, there they are.
All right. How's it going?
Going good.
I dropped the Crowley glasses for this particular bit because it's a little hard to sew with them on. I'm going to turn my camera around. Maylee's going to camera for me during the panel.
Sounds good.
All right. Calista, you want to tell them a little about what the mask is for?
Yes. So, what we're going to be seeing today is how to make a DIY medical mask out of just whatever fabric you might have hanging around from your last cosplay that you were working on, whatever that might be. And these are PPE, personal protective equipment masks. These are basically matching what the CDC guidelines have been for cloth face coverings. So these are, when you do have to go outside, this is the sort of thing you should be wearing. So very appropriate for this particular convention or a how-to panel. And
Oh, no, go ahead.
we're going to be watching Ask Cosplay Senpai here, making these, and then there is also going to be a downloadable file on askcosplaysenpai.com, which will be where you can find the pattern for this, and that'll be posted with links and everything after the panel.
All right. Thank you very much. So what I am using today is I've got this cute little macaron fabric I've been meaning to use. Yeah, they don't need to see me. They just need to see the work. I've got it in white and I've got it in black. And I'm using two different colors. For one, so you can tell the front from the back. I think I'm going to use the black one as the front. I think it's cute. So you can tell the front from the back. But also because the way this mask is made, it is reversible. So the first thing I'm going to do is cut these out into 8-inch squares. And I'm using a rotary cutter. You can just use scissors, whatever you've got that you can use to make something 8 inches by 8 inches. Do that. If you do a whole lot of sewing and you don't have a rotary cutter, that's my recommendation for your stimulus check. It looks like a pizza wheel for fabric. It is 100% a pizza wheel for fabric. But it is easy to get nice straight lines. So what I'm using is, I've got my front right here, and I've got my back right here. So once you've got your two 8-inch squares, you don't need a lot of supplies for this. You just need two 8-inch squares of fabric, two 7-inch pieces of elastic, which I am cutting right now. If you need a mask that's a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller, you can increase or reduce all of these measurements by 1/2 inch. But that is also in the tutorial on my website, which is free, and we will link you to as soon as this is over. So I have my two pieces of elastic. I've got my two pieces of fabric. I'm using an optional bit. This is a 4-inch piece of pipe cleaner, and I'm going to use this for the nose piece so that you can shape the mask around your nose and make a seal there. You don't have to do this. I like it. It's a little safer. You can use regular wire, but I like pipe cleaner because it's less likely to poke through the sides of your mask. Very uncomfortable, especially with it that close to your the soft skin by your cheeks and eyes. You don't want any of that. So now that I have these two pieces cut out, I'm going to sew the top together. I'm going to sew the top to the top. I'm going to go around here to the sewing machine. Out of the way. robe patterns from making Connie's robe last night. Now you can sew these by hand. I would recommend using a machine because you are sewing through several layers and it's a lot. But you can sew them by hand if you don't have a sewing machine. Or if, like one of my very, very odd friends, you prefer hand sewing. More power to you for that. Callie, if anybody has any questions, will you let me know because I cannot read the screen.
Yes, we actually have our first question, which is, what if the only elastic they have is the thick kind?
You can use whatever elastic you're comfortable with. Just keep in mind it is going to go behind your ears, so the thinner it is, the better. If all you have is the thick kind, you can fold it in half and sew it down. But if it's thick, you're going to want it to be soft. If that's absolutely not going to work, what you can do instead of elastic is sew in basically long pieces of ribbon, and then you can tie it around the back of your head and the back of your neck instead. Those will need to be at least 18 inches long, and you'll need 4 of them.
Next question, if you can't sew, could you use hot glue instead of thread to attach the 2 pieces of fabric?
I guess you could. It would look a little, I'm not gonna lie, it's gonna look a little lumpy. But yes, I don't see any reason why you couldn't. Now, I'm using what is called a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Most patterns use a 5/8 seam allowance. And you put it about here when you're sewing things together. That seam allowance means there's 5/8 an inch of fabric left after you're sewing. I'm using a 1/4, and that is when it's lined up with the edge of your sewing foot. This is very common for quilting, and since we are putting small pieces of fabric together, a quilting stitch is going to be the most appropriate for that. If you're used to a larger seam allowance, and you knew what I meant when I said seam allowance, you can add your own, but these are designed for a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm keeping the fabric aligned with the side of my foot. If you're more comfortable pinning fabric together before you sew it, you can absolutely do that instead. Heat up my iron. The trick to getting your fabric to look pretty and lie flat when you're sewing it is, oh, wow. I guess I didn't get rid of all the fabric dye. Is to press your seams open. Now, pressing is a little different than ironing. Ironing, you move the iron. Pressing, you just set it down and press. So what I'm doing here is, here's my seam, and I'm going to press it open like that. And press it down like that. I am using the highest setting for this because it is a cotton fabric, and cotton can really, really take the heat. Did Andy draw that?
He sure did.
What a sweetheart. What a sweetheart. He's so talented, and I'm still so impressed with his design for Connie. Okay, so here's the front.
So that I can eat my pizza without everyone having to watch me.
Oh, very kind, very kind. So here's going to be the front of my mask. Here's the back. I've got what I've called the tops having been sewn together. So we're going to head back over here. We're going to pin our elastic in place. So I'm going to do this with the correct sides forward. Right side to right side, it's called. This is the right side. That's the wrong side. And about 1/2 inch down, I'm going, actually, don't I do, no I don't. About 1/2 inch down, I'm going to pin one of my little elastic pieces in place. And then I'm going to pin it about 1 inch from the bottom. You will have to kind of fold this up in order to do that. One of the reasons I really like using a grid like this is because I don't have to get out a ruler and measure something every time. I know this is an inch from the bottom because the bottom's right there and the next block is an inch away. So if you're going to do sewing in any kind of quantity, I would highly recommend a rotary cutter and one of these grid mats. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Now this doesn't have to be absolutely perfect because it is elastic. So they don't have to be exactly half an inch or exactly 1 inch. But you do want them to be pretty even because you are wearing it on your face. And most of us have faces that are about the same size on both sides. Now you'll notice I'm not pinning these all the way through. That's because I'm about to have to take these pins out and do it again. Because once I've got these aligned right here, I'm going to fold the back part over and line it up. And so if you can get really close right here, Neely, I am pinning this little piece of elastic like a sandwich in between these two pieces of fabric because I want all of them to be sewn together. So there we go. That's a nice strong pin that is ready for me to sew. I'm going to do that on all four sides. So I use those pins to kind of hold the elastic in place while I folded my fabric over. So this is an 1/8 inch wide elastic, so it's pretty hard to find and pin. 1/4 inch is great. Now the top part. Well, you could go through and do all of this at the same time, but I like going through and measuring one side and then the other. That way I can look at it and make sure it's even. Oh, buddy. Never, ever, ever put pins in your mouth. It's super dangerous.
Thanks for that helpful advice.
Yep. All right. Now I have my elastic pinned in place. We're gonna go back to the sewing machine. There's a lot of back and forth with this one. Oof. And I'm going to sew with another 1/4 inch seam allowance. And if you put your pins in straight, your sewing machine will be able to glide right over them. All the way down to the bottom. I'm not sewing the bottom closed yet. Not yet. I'm going to do this side.
That's right. Never ever put pins in your mouth.
Don't do it. Now we're not going to turn it inside out just yet. We've got one more thing we need to do first. Let's go back over there. So now we're going to clip our corners. I'm going to use this side so it's a little easier to see. So you can see where we've got sort of an X right here where we did the top seam and then we did the side seam. We're going to cut very close to that X. Because see, when we turn this inside out, all of this fabric right here is going to go to the inside and it's going to bunch up together. And if we trim it, we get a nice hard corner. But if we don't, we have a whole bunch of extra fabric and extra thread that has to get stuffed up in that corner, and your corners look big and puffy, and everyone who sees it is like, aha, they don't know how to cut at the X. They must be new at this. So there you go. Very simple, very easy trick. Before we turn this inside out though, one more thing we got to do. we need to take our pipe cleaner. Again, this is an optional piece. I like it. We're going to take our pipe cleaner and we're going to, up within our seam allowance, here's our thread right here. I'll do it on this side, it's easier to see. Here's our thread right here. Within the seam allowance means up here in this flap, right here. You're going to, you can use hot glue, you can use thread, you can use pins if you don't mind pulling them out when you're done, but you're going to attach this up here to the top of your seam allowance. I'm
We
going
have a
to,
question.
yes, go ahead, while I get my needle and thread.
Malfunctioning adult wants to know, are you not backstitching because the seams cross?
I'm not backstitching because because the seams cross, yeah, but also because I'm going to top stitch when I'm done. And if you backstitch when you got a really small seam allowance like that, you're more likely to warp your fabric, like shift it if it's not pinned very well. And I don't usually use pins. So what you want to do if you're ever doing anything small like that, or quilting, basically attaching one small piece of fabric to another small piece of fabric, instead of backstitching, what you're going to want to do is start off in the direction you are. Don't backstitch, but start with a very, very small stitch length, like almost 0. And put in several stitches and then go to the stitch length that you want. Like extend it back to 2 or 3 or whatever it is you're sewing on. Because that way you get some very strong stitches at the front and you don't have that telltale zigzag of backstitching. I realize that answer might go over a few people's heads, and I do apologize. That was not my intention. But the nature of the question tells me that that answer is going to be helpful for the asker. Okay.
Yep, they said they got it.
All right. Yeah, that's actually a common trick to make your stuff look a little more professional, because while backstitching is fantastic, backstitching also means this came from a shop without an industrial machine. It's just like how having a double needle will make your stuff look really good and really professional, but the understitching in the back still says this was done by double needle because I don't have a cover stitch machine. So backstitching is good and sturdy and very, very useful. But if you want something to look like it came from a professional shop, you don't want backstitching showing anywhere because they don't use it. So this is just me tacking down my pipe cleaner. Again, you can use like regular wire and you can attach this with hot glue. I usually would attach this with a couple dots of hot glue, but I forgot to plug it in and I don't want to have to wait. This is your mask, by the way, Callie.
Yay!
No, I haven't made you any real macarons, so you're getting fake ones first.
That makes sense.
Okay. That's not perfectly centered, but neither is my nose, and I'm going to be the only one wearing it, so I'm not too mad about it. Now we're going to turn this inside out. When you turn this inside out, you'll want to start with your corners, and you'll be able to tell exactly what I meant about not wanting any additional bulk fabric in there. If you want a really nice, really sharp corner, you can go through and use like a seam turner or a chopstick or something like that. I'm going to use the tip of the Sharpie because it has never steered me wrong. Okay, that corner versus that corner that hasn't been turned with something. Come on.
Malfunctioning adult says, that's so cute.
Oh, the fabric or
Mhm.
the fact that it's freer? Because either way, they're right. But okay, so there we go. Now I've got, I believe I called this the ravioli stage in the tutorial. But I've got my elastic. I've got a vaguely mask shape. I've got an open bottom. Oh my! I'm gonna go over and press these seams again. So that my mask is nice and square, because I'm about to put pleats in it, and pleats are much easier when you are starting from square. And again, these don't have to be perfect. They just have to work. While I'm over here, I am also going to turn my bottom seam inward. So this is open right now, and stop like having it be open. We want to sew it shut. In order to do that, we're going to fold it in on itself like that. And then we're going to iron it down. You can go through and measure and pin and trim and clip and whatever you want to do, or you can just fold it under and iron it down. You know, it either way works. So see, I've got fabric in here, I've got fabric in here. And what I'm gonna do to close all of this up, I'm gonna sew a 1/4 inch top stitch all around the outside. Now a top stitch is it's a stitch on the top of the fabric. It is exactly what it sounds like. It's not a stitch where a seam is going to be hidden on the inside. You'll see both sides of the stitch. So when I top stitch all the way around this, that's going to reinforce my elastic. It's going to hold my nose wire into place. And it's also going to stitch shut the bottom of my mask. So he's a very, very useful stitch. He's a very good boy. We're very happy with him. The tail's actually pretty comfortable. Now I'm going to start with the top because I want to make sure my nose piece is in place and I've got it held with my thumb. So again, 1/4 inch seam allowance. The edge of the fabric is right up against the machine foot. I'll hold it there. And then when I'm about 1/4 of an inch from the other side, I'm going to lift the foot and turn it and keep going. And like I said, instead of back stitching, once I get to where I want to stop, I will lower my stitch length to almost 0 and then stitch it a couple of times. And that tacks everything down, but you'll see once I have this thread trimmed, there's no telltale zigzag of back stitching. It's very smooth. So unless someone was looking very hard, they would not be able to see where the seam started or ended. Notice I did not start or end in the actual corner. That's a lot harder to line up than people think it is. Okay, so
We've
I
got
can tell the top. Oh, say again?
We've got a question. What
Yes.
sewing machine do you use?
I use, it's covered in stickers, so anytime I buy thread, I put the sticker on there. But this is a Kenmore sewing machine. I have had this sewing machine for, I would say, 11 or 12 years now. And I've never had any problems with it. It's a very sturdy machine. It was not terribly expensive. But Kenmore is not, it's the same people that make like refrigerators and ovens and microwaves. So I'm not going to pretend my misogynist ex-husband did not buy it so that it matched our kitchen. But I digress. It is a Kenmore. You can get Kenmore sewing machines at Sears, and that's about it. So if I was going to recommend a sewing machine to anyone, I would recommend this one for longevity. If you just want to sew in your spare time and make some cosplay, it doesn't really matter. You don't need anything fancy. And this one's not fancy, and I make plenty of fancy stuff with it. But if you're like, oh man, I can only get the $75 machine from Walmart, then heck yeah, get the $75 machine from Walmart. It's gonna work great. Okay. Now we're gonna pleat. This is the actual hard part. If this takes you more than one try, don't worry about it. It also took me more than one try. So when you pleat fabric, think of like a pleated skirt. You've got fabric, but it's kind of folded over so that it can unfold down at the bottom and make this nice square up top. We are going to pleat both sides and leave the middle unsewn so that it can stretch out to cover your nose and mouth, but the sides will stay smaller so that they create a seal up against your cheek. So given that this is the front of the fabric, what we're going to do is, this way. We're going to fold it in half towards us, and then we're going to fold it back away from us, and we're going to leave about 1/2 inch right here. That's actually too big. Let me try again. Again, I like doing this on my grid. There we go. We're going to leave about 1/2 inch like that. That's what it looks like on the edge. Yeah. So you fold it towards you, and then you fold it back, leaving 1/2 inch, and then you pick it up and you take it to the ironing board and you press it, because it will not stay in place by itself no matter how much you want it to. So when you're pressing, do your best to make sure your top stitch on either side is lined up, because that's going to make sure you do have well-aligned pleats, and also it's going to look better when we're done and we sew all of these together. Okay.
Malfunctioning adult says, I just want to say I love that Crowley is teaching us to make masks.
Well, you know, he wants you to he doesn't want you to die. He just wants you to be miserable. You can't be miserable if you're dead.
You got to live long enough to do some sinning.
There you go. So then we're going to flip it back over, like front side. We got that pleat done. We'll flip it to the back side. We're going to fold up to our crease, and then we are going to fold back down again, leaving about 1/2 inch.
Another question. Crazy
Yes.
Kimmy says, what if you don't have an ironing board?
If you don't have an ironing board, use pins to hold these in place. And if you have a god, pray to them. Now, if you don't have an ironing board, but you do have an iron, you can take a table and put like a bath towel on top of it, fold it over, make sure you've got at least 2 layers, and that will function as an ironing board. Okay, and then we're going to flip it back to the front. And we're going to fold it down to our crease line. And then we're going to fold back up, leaving half an inch or so. Again, these don't have to be perfect. 3 pleats is ideal. You can do it with just 2, but 3 is best. I'm gonna press these down. Again, this is cotton, so it can take some really high heat. Don't worry about it melting or anything. If you're gonna make this out of polyester, don't iron it. Pin and pray. All right, and now we got our little accordion baby. And I'm gonna do this step for you guys. I would skip this step. Don't be like me. You want to pin your pleats in place and then try saying that 5 times fast. And this is why we iron it, because we have these nice dramatic folds to tell us where to go.
Makes it a lot easier.
And so if you look where I've pinned, you can still follow. Now it's a little lumpy because of the pins, but you can follow this white top stitch line that we put all the way down here. Same thing on the other side. And so what you're going to do is you're going to put this back in your machine, and you are going to stitch again down the right and left hand sides on top of your top stitch. And that way you don't have an extra seam showing. So I'm going to put this in here. Take out this first pin so it lays flat. I'll start with my low stitch length. And I'm going to increase the stitch length so it actually pulls the fabric through the machine. When I get to the last pleat, decrease my stitch length, tack it into place, and there we go. I didn't get it perfectly on there, but with some effort you can. That is the first side. Now I know by instinct you're gonna want to turn this around and do the other side the other way, but don't do that. You'll want to iron down your pleats. You don't want to do it this way because you risk them folding up and flipping over. Oh, that was a stab.
Don't do that.
You're so bossy.
Yes. Bossy about making sure you don't get hurt. The worst.
You're just the worst. How dare you? Missed a little bit there. This side is not aligned at all. Goodness. Oh, good. My neighbor's mowing his lawn, so I apologize for any sound disturbance. Okay. Now, if you take your time and don't rush, you'll get nice lines like this instead of kind of lumpy lines like that. But, you know, it's a pandemic. We can't all be expected to be at our best. So now we can tell our top from our bottom because the top has the wire in it. and that will shape up against our nose. And so you will, let me take my glasses off, put your mask on, shape it to your nose, and be sure you pull it down over your chin. There you go. And if you're like, you know what, I am wearing light colors today, I don't want to bring myself down, you can flip it the other way around. And so, see, the pleats are sewn together here so they seal up against your cheeks. The wire in the nose piece seals it up against your cheeks up here. And then the fact that it's not sewn together in the middle and it can accordion out, tucks it up under your chin like that. And there you go. You have...
I actually have a question.
Yes.
Will these be machine washable?
They are indeed machine washable.
Nice.
Yes. Because I just machine washed mine last night. But they're nice and thick. They've got 2 layers. Yeah, machine washable, very sturdy, and easy to customize. So yeah, if I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. The pattern for this is at askcosplaysenpai.com. That's my username.com. We just posted it up. It is a digital thing, so you're not actually buying a mask. You're buying the pattern to make the mask, and you don't even have to buy it. There's a free option if you just don't have the cash and you really want to make one. That's fine. I want everybody to be able to be creative and be safe at the same time. So does anybody have any final questions before we start wrapping up?
We've got about 13 minutes left. So
gracious. Well, like I said, I am absolutely open to questions. But while I wait for that, I'm going to go ahead and cut out the fabric for Andy's mask.
Hooray! I love seeing the tail on that Kigu go swish swish.
I have to hold it when I walk upstairs or I trip.
Malfunctioning adult says, that's so great, and so are you.
Aw, so sweet. I like to be helpful. The trick in this is finding plain... You bring them over here so they can see my stash. The trick is finding plain fabric. I mean, it is double-sided, but
oh, here's a great one.
Yeah.
Crazy Kimmy says, what's the best type of fabric to use, such as with
cotton.
old t-shirt work, or should you use a different fabric?
T-shirt would be tricky because that fabric is stretchy, and if you are not familiar with sewing stretchy fabric, you can do it, absolutely. It's just going to be more difficult. What you want is a fabric that does not have any stretch to it. So that would be...
And preferably a cotton, you were saying?
100% cotton. Yeah, that is going to lend it to being easy to iron and easy to wash. That's interfacing.
The fabric hoard.
Yeah, I thought you just called me a nasty name. I'm a fabric what? How dare you?
No! I'm just calling you a hoarder.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. That's true. Hey, it's only hoarding if things don't come in useful.
Malfunctioning adult says, I don't know a lot about what makes masks effective, but is it not necessary to have a filter in the mask, or does the double fabric do that? I will go ahead and say the CDC guidelines say a like any cloth face covering is effective because COVID-19 is water droplet based and transmittable. The important thing is just making sure that basically your bodily fluids can't get on your hands or on other things that people would touch. So even just having, something like this where it has the double layer of fabric is very effective. There are people that are putting filters in their masks, but because COVID-19 isn't airborne, that doesn't really do anything in addition.
It will keep you from catching non-COVID-19 things.
Yes.
If you're going to a hospital or a nursing home or something like that where you might catch something that is not COVID-19, then a filter is a good idea, especially if you are already like immunocompromised or something like that. I mean, that's just a good idea in general. But when it comes to coronavirus specifically, as long as you're not coughing to the point where your mask is getting wet, you won't be able to transmit that to somebody else. So, for this, yes, the double layer of fabric is fine. Filters are if you are already, like, unless you usually wear a mask with a filter when you go out, you're going to be fine.
Exactly. And yeah, that's kind of one of those things that I know a lot of people are worried about because everyone's wearing the masks and everyone's talked about how basically one of the main ways it's spreading is people cough or they touch their face. But yeah, that's the big thing, is that it's the water droplets that end up on a surface is the most likely way that you will catch it.
Yeah. So
So
put
of
your
course
mask
the mask,
on before you leave the house, and don't
yes,
take it off until you get back and wash your hands.
yes.
That's also why it is good to have a washable mask, is because you can hand wash it in the sink. You don't have to put it in the laundry. You can put it in the laundry. But yeah, you don't want to just take a dirty mask and put it right back on your face, especially if it's reversible.
Yes. And the masks, one of the primary things that they're really pushing for people to use it as, because COVID-19 can present so asymptomatically, where you don't feel bad at all, but you are carrying it. That's why they're saying everyone should wear a mask, because you might not necessarily know you have it. And if you don't have something preventing yourself from spreading droplets, you have a greater potential of potentially giving that to someone else.
Yeah.
All right, well, okay, we have about 7 minutes left. Anything else you want to go over?
Yeah, I'm gonna use this. It's either a black or a very dark blue with white spots for the front of Andy's mask. What do you think I should use for the interior?
Let's see. I would say a real bright color, maybe another kind of solid like the black, but something where it could be like, that would be the reverse side, is something that would be really vivid, like a really vivid green or a really vivid pink.
Let's see.
Those are definitely the two colors that he's especially into lately.
Green that's not Christmassy.
Maybe not quite that.
Maybe not.
That's not a very punk pink.
Right. See, I've been working off my stash for a month and a half, and I'm down a lot of solids. Oh, cats exist.
Hello, Kata.
Oh, I've got a dark green. Well, that's not interesting. Here we go.
Fabulous.
Oh, okay, fabulous. I'll take fabulous. Yeah. Well, it's good to know I can make one of these in less than an hour.
Right? Hey.
Should have made an IsoCon one.
That would have been fun. That would be cool.
Oh, I will say to anyone else who is still hanging out, if you do make a mask with this pattern, please tag me in it because I'd love to see.
Heck yes. Also, that's another one. Tag Ask Cosplay Senpai or Shop Cosplay Senpai. Also tag IsoCon 2020 because we would love to share pictures of the cool masks that people come up with.
Definitely. This is not a con. Speaking of IsoCon and Shop Cosplay Senpai though. I am the one that is making the shirts and badges. So if you want to remember IsoCon as though you were there in person, you can pick up a shirt, you can pick up a badge, you can pick up both. I've also got some custom snapback hats in the Artist Alley post. I've got my Hogwarts houses. We've got Trans Pride, heck yeah. Nezu, Aravity, Ingenium, Froppy, UA. So, you know, if you are a BNHA fan. Do some other customs. We've got some Miri on Ice down here. Honk, Untitled Goose Game, Luna and Artemis, which do have cat ears. Meow. Beats. So, yeah, a little bit of everything, but mostly these good guys right here. Very happy with those. Very happy with Andy's craftsmanship in building our logo and our mascot.
Oh, I'm so glad you already got your badge, malfunctioning adult. That's awesome.
Yes, yes. Okay, good.
That's another one. If you take pictures like with your badge, tag us in those too. We want to see them. Yeah. All right. Well, with the 2 minutes that we have left, I'm going to go ahead and say at 5:45 Eastern, 2:45 Pacific. That's our next panel. That's going to be Cosplayers with Disabilities, the Service Dog edition, with Mustard the Custard. Oh, the bees one is great. So just had someone comment that. Bees? But yes, so please join us for that. That's definitely going to be a very informational panel. I hope you guys will enjoy that and hope to see you there. Oh, looks like, wow, what timing. They're, oh, there you are. Sorry, you froze there for a second. I was going to say, what timing for them to freeze?
Sorry. Yes, thank you for attending IsoCon. And for coming to the panel.
Yes. Thank you so much. Oh, and S Bishop, well, you can still get the mask pattern for free. You can go to their website and you can, there's literally a free option that you can quote unquote buy. All right, well, thanks everyone for joining, and we will see you for the next panel in about 25 minutes.
Sounds good. We'll see you all then.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, come on.